Big development for the 49ers, literally so. Jaden Duggar, their rookie with a 7-foot wingspan, is one of the NFL's spring standouts. So is Kayvon Thibodeau, who plays for the New York Giants, the hometown team here. And the 49ers, I think they're interested in trading for Kayvon Thibodeau. By the way, speaking of New York, I know it was a huge night here last night, but that building behind me looks like Paris plopped into New York. Babe Ruth used to live in it, the Ansonia building here on the Upper West Side, and also was the home of Lefty O'Doul for a little bit of time. Lefty O'Doul is San Francisco baseball legend. The Empire State Building, famously tall with, look, a New York Knicks billboard right in front of it. Perfect to discuss the very tall linebacker core that the 49ers are building, with Duggar and his 7-foot wingspan, with Larry Worth, with their tall linebackers coach, K.J. Wright. But I think that the more timely piece of discussion has to be on the most famous arena in the world. This is Madison Square Garden. Last night we saw the biggest comeback in NBA Finals history happen here, and sports remain undefeated. It was absolute bedlam here in New York last night. There are people walking up to Madison Square Garden just still giddy, taking pictures. You know, the New York Knicks head coach, Mike Brown, just happens to be a 49ers fan.
Double win tonight for me. Lions lost. 49ers clinched a spot in the playoffs. Way to go, Kyle. Way to go, baby. Way to go, Niner Land. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll take that.
So Mike Brown knows better than anyone the Knicks have to finish the job now, because when you talk about big playoff comebacks and the 49ers, I immediately think of the NFC Championship game against the Detroit Lions a couple seasons ago, down 24-7. Brock Purdy put the team on his back, but the 49ers did a whole heck of a lot on both sides of the ball to finish off Detroit, but then they couldn't finish off the Super Bowl. So that comeback is not nearly as celebrated as it probably should be. I also think about the January 2003 NFC wildcard game. The 49ers playing New York's team, the Giants, down by a lot, down by 24 points in that game. The 49ers came back and they won 39-38. Extremely controversial finish, but another example of a huge, huge comeback. Of course, the 49ers didn't win the Super Bowl that year either. They lost to John Lynch and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the very next week. They got blown out 31-6. You know somebody who knows a thing or two about finishing the job here in New York, because that's where the Seahawks won the Super Bowl in 2013? The 49ers linebackers coach, K.J. Wright. Now, physically, 6'4", very similar to Jaden Duggar, maybe not a 7-foot wingspan, but listen to KJ talking about the challenges facing the long rookie linebacker.
With his length, like, I could just show you, you gotta be able to like bend and like extend at the same time. You gotta bend and extend. So he's all the way up here. All right, you got a Jake Brendel who's going to try to get into you. He's trying to get underneath you. So you gotta be able to bend, find a way to take the edges, and based off your strength and skill set is how you take on blocks. My biggest thing is how can I get them good in the trenches, taking on blocks, getting off the offensive lineman and getting to the rock. The pass game is going to be a blast. It's going to be his get better as far as being in the trenches.
Just wait until you hear the story of how KJ came to the 49ers. First, though, in the shadow of the Empire State Building sits the San Francisco Bar. Yes, I know that it's taken over by New York Knicks flags now, but this right here is a literal piece of the Golden Gate Bridge at Finnerty's. They use it for the door handles. So if you want to catch 49ers, Giants games, or I guess Knicks games right now in New York, in the shadow of the Empire State Building, you can come to Finnerty's on 33rd Street. Back to KJ Wright though. Seattle Seahawk, Legion of Boom Seattle Seahawk. But as we know, stuff developed in a crazy way starting in 2018 when Richard Sherman came to the 49ers. And it was Richard Sherman who created the connection for K.J. Wright to come to the 49ers as their linebackers coach.
Thankfully, like Sherman gave him a call and said, hey man, like I told Sherman, hey, I want to coach, and he said I'm gonna call Kyle, and that's how this whole thing worked out. And so first of all, thank him for trusting me.
If you understand K.J. Wright's playing career and you understand Raheem Morris's defensive coordinating career, you can understand the 49ers linebacker position. Grand Central Station, iconic, the next stop. Not as tall as some of the buildings around it, but taller than the 49ers linebacker core, which, by the way, exceptionally tall. They're looking for length to disrupt passing lanes. That's why I talk so much about the wingspan of Jaden Duggar. That's how K.J. Wright played for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the trick is being able to take that height, which can be a disadvantage in close quarters in physical play, and find a way to still be effective against the run. That's the challenge that the 49ers are facing with Jaden Duggar right now. That's a challenge that they're facing with another rookie, Larry Worth, out of the University of Arkansas. But KJ seems to be happy about the work that is happening with Larry Worth.
From a guy that's played safety his whole career, now coming a linebacker, he's further along than I thought he would be, right? It's a completely different lens going from back here to 5 yards up. I was telling him earlier, you got to deal with linemen now. All right, you got to deal with 300-pound guys trying to take you and bury you and put you, take you to the coolest on the sideline. So for him, he comes in early, meets with the coaches, smart guy, playing multiple positions, and so been really impressed with him. And Coach Holland has had some success with safeties converting to linebackers. Remember Fland was here years ago, and so I really love where he's at right now.
Now, we can and probably should extend this discussion to the entire 49ers front seven. This is where Raheem Morris and his adaptable philosophy comes in, because it just so happens to be that the 49ers assistant defensive line coach, Greg Scruggs, another guy who played with both K.J. Wright and Richard Sherman in Seattle, but it's the assistant D-line coach who's working with defensive ends who are planning to drop back into a linebacker position for part of the time with the 49ers.
So we have an awesome coach by the name of Greg Scruggs. I played with Scruggs in Seattle, a guy that has played D-end, D-tackle, played tight end, a smart coach. He's going to take over those stand-up guys on the line of scrimmage. So you'll see with Romelo, I call Romelo a weapon. He's a D-end. He's rushing, standing up, he's dropping back. This guy is a weapon. Who knows what Raheem does? He may put him over a guard here and there. So really excited how we utilize him. And I kid you not, when I first watched him play, just his speed, his intensity, the way he gets after their quarterback, he's going to be a really big help for us this year, especially on third down.
So what the 49ers are trying to do is build an amorphous front seven, maybe even anchored eventually by somebody like Romelo Height, their draft pick, whom K.J. Wright talked about, a weapon for the 49ers defense who can line up in many different places but can drop into coverage and create confusion against opposing offenses. Height has some length, Height has some speed, and now the linebackers of the 49ers are trying to develop from Jaden Duggar to Larry Worth. They also have some length. The 49ers want to be like a basketball team in that front seven, but a physical one that can also play the run, and that's where coaching and development comes in. Because we have to discuss this, in Raheem Morris terms, and that is talking about the adaptability of the whole front seven, let's focus a little bit more on Romelo Height and Chris Kocurek. Let's bring in Chris Kocurek, the 49ers defensive line coach. When I talked to him about Height, it was interesting to me that the common theme that Chris Kocurek kept on returning to was speed.
Yeah, speed, explosion. A guy that really, really cares about his craft, always playing hard, pursuing the football, can make grass disappear, when he's running across the field, be able to put a tackle, with his get off, be able to put a tackle behind the 8 ball in the set and force him to, turn and do things that we want him to do with the speed that he gets off the ball with. So, and then just the way he plays, the energy he brings, every time you plug on the Tech film last year, he was showing up around the ball, pursuing the ball across the field. Obviously, the pass rush jumps off the tape. So, and then just the toughness that he plays with.
The 49ers believe in Romelo Height's pass rushing ability. That's obviously a given. But when you hear Kocurek talk, when you hear Raheem Morris talk, when you hear K.J. Wright talk, I mean, coaches at multiple different positions, and I'm sure if we talk to Greg Scruggs, a D-line coach who's working with Romelo Height on his coverage drops, we would notice that this pattern, that they're all talking about the guy's speed, his ability to make grass disappear. And I think that's one of the biggest hints when it comes to our analysis of how this 49ers defense is going to be structured under Raheem Morris. He wants intense athleticism, high traits guys in that front seven. You saw the 49ers go after exceptional relative athletic scores, but above all else, he wants that length in the front seven to create true matchup problems for opposing offenses. Comes back down to some five-man fronts. And, you know, the 49ers, before we get too far carried away and say that they're going to radicalize this entire defense and change everything schematically, Chris Kocurek made it very clear, and I think Raheem Morris has made it clear as well, that the 49ers will stay in their base four down front. But what they're adding is the variability of the five-man front, because Raheem has experience with all of these different fronts, and that five-man front would allow the 49ers and will allow the 49ers to execute some of these coverage drops and some of this adaptable play from defensive ends like Romelo Height, and I would say by extension, even Jaden Duggar. Why Duggar? Well, look at the positional background of Jaden Duggar. He played an edge rusher type position, something like Romelo Height, before he moved to inside linebacker. Before then, Jaden Duggar was a safety. So they're training him strictly as linebacker now to get him used to playing in the fray against the run. That's going to be the base of Jaden Duggar's play, but I think that you cannot ignore the fact that he's been at several different positions because the 49ers will naturally deploy their front seven players and some of these linebackers in a variety of different roles. That's what's going to make this scheme ultimately sing for San Francisco. So this intense focus on length to play against the pass and this very ambitious plan to try to combine that length with run defense capabilities, because we know the 49ers have to be good in that phase of the game as well. I mean, it's a tough needle to thread, but I think ultimately it is all potentially made possible by how big and strong a team is at defensive tackle. And that's the position that I'm going to talk about in our next video. As you can see, it's time to leave New York. That's why I'm at Grand Central Station. Have to head out to the airport, but so much of this 49ers defensive plan is rooted in what they can do right in the middle, right at that defensive tackle spot, which is why they've invested so much in the interior over the course of the past 2 seasons. Obviously the draft with Alfred Collins, C.J. West, and Grayson Halton. I would even say Michael Williams fits into the interior plan because he'll rush from there. But then the trade for Osa Odighizuwa this past year. If you are strong against both the run and the pass, and probably run first, if you're strong against the run as a foundation on the interior, and you could draw some double teams there, it opens up the flow for the linebacker position. It opens up the flow for the rest of the front seven to be able to capitalize on their comparative advantages. And for the 49ers, I think that very clearly is going to be height. From Fred Warner, the tall 6'4" linebacker brought aboard in 2018, an all-time great now, to the rookies are going to be trying to make their names. The 49ers are doing something different in that front seven, but it all ends up being rooted in that defensive line, in that interior. And that's what the 49ers have maybe improved the most this offseason. So subscribe, because the next video we're going to talk about those defensive tackles and hear from Chris Kocurek on them as well. So long from New York City. It was a hell of a 24-hour stop, and I think this is a good place to finish it. We'll see if the Knicks can finish the job after one of the great comebacks in sports history.